What's it like to be a part of the esports media industry, and how does streaming affect esports as a whole? Today we're going to be answering those questions with Sharon Coone, the editor-in-chief at Blitz Esports. It's good to see you, Sharon.
Good to be here.
In your opinion, what are the most popular types of esports articles and videos to produce? And then what's your personal favorite after that?
There's a few categories. Very common and popular are interviews with players. Those are publicized by player, quote from player. Those are cheap, simple, you'll see them a lot. Another type, you get long-form features. These are less successful. The average esports audience member does not like to read more than about 500 words. 500 words, 5 minutes of video, those are like your soft caps. So you get long-form features about narratives, less successful. You have analysis content, which is what we do a lot. We do play breakdowns. That's super popular. Other categories, opinion pieces, less popular because unless somebody that the community cares about is giving the opinion, nobody cares. And usually people don't form attachments to writers nowadays. So personal favorite is this tactical stuff. I find that because across all the esports, the viewers are players, so they care a lot about breaking down how they could improve their play.
Okay, so moving this into another topic, what are the differences in covering the various esport titles? There's a lot of different esport titles that you have to cover. Are there any major differences between working with them?
So there's definitely some logistical differences. League of Legends and Overwatch are based here in Los Angeles, so what outlets will do is go to the arena, watch the games. Afterwards, we work with PR to get one-on-one interviews with the players. Then there are things like CSGO, which are logistically very difficult. Valve's not really running the PR, so you can't go through them. You kind of have to contact teams who are around the world, and some don't go to some tournaments, some go to others. It's a mess. Audience-wise, audiences are also very different. Overwatch League is very new, so it's not very player-based. It's people who are fans of the game and the gameplay itself. So they like more game-based content, cool plays. In League of Legends, people are really attached to personalities because they've been around for so long. So stuff featuring players or things that they're saying or opinions they have, very strong. CSGO, tough nut. It's a very gritty community because it's so grassroots, and they care a lot about the drama, and they care a lot about the stories. CSGO has a lot of stories. It's like the players are older and they're tattooed, and the prison time in CSGO is much larger than all the other esports. So definitely different communities. They all have different interests.
Are some games more fun to cover than others, depending on what you're doing? Do you bounce between different esport titles being your favorite to cover? Do you consistently find one's a little bit more fun? What determines that for you?
I think the ones that are most fun are where the fans are most rabid.
So what do you mean by that?
So fans that love their community, they're interested in content not just because it pleases them, but because it's good for the community. And we see that a lot in League of Legends and Overwatch as it's growing now. They want content because it makes them smarter, it makes other people smarter, it makes them feel good about the players or themselves, or it brings them closer. So that's why League of Legends and Overwatch can be a little more fun to work in than something like CSGO, where people are a little more interested. It's less of a community, it's more dispersed.
Do certain game styles or esports lend themselves to different types of articles or different types of video pieces? Could you give any examples of that?
Yeah, definitely. This is most noticeable for me in Dota. So in Dota, the game is actually designed, there aren't a lot of metas in Dota, and that's because the strengths in gameplay are how different characters interact with each other. And because of that, the gameplay professionally is very teamwork based, and you don't get a lot of stars, like individual stars. So there aren't a lot of player narratives in Dota, and it's extremely hard to cover. We see that also a little bit in Overwatch. So in League of Legends, you get the mid laner or the AD carry roles are usually very popular, and it's because it's very easy to recognize a successful, powerful player in those positions because they're just killing a lot of people. It's easy to recognize greatness. In a game like Overwatch, sometimes we see this already. People are big fans of AD carries like Surefour or Flower because it's easy to observe them getting kills and it's exciting. But if someone pops off on a diva, no one's gonna rage over that. So because Overwatch is a team game with roles that are flexible or roles that aren't DPS based, you get fewer player stories that way. So Overwatch definitely is developing that. CSGO and League have very player-based things, and you have to make different content for all of those.
Okay, so for the players that are in less popular roles like that, do you think it's good? I mean, it's good for any player to do it, but especially for them, do you think it's good that they kind of build up their brand personality so they can kind of be in the media too in a way like that?
Yes. I talk with players a lot. I get them in interview rooms a lot, and they default to this like a nice personality, like I just want to answer the interview questions correctly and I want to move on with my life. It is so important for them to brand, and they either brand as like, they can brand as like an intelligent player or a trash talking player or the confident player or the insightful player or like the like obtuse one that makes weird jokes about water, which we have in League of Legends with Moon. He just drinks water and says stay hydrated, and it's his brand. And that makes things easier on us on our end. If I ever want to do special content, it's easier to do it with Moon than with somebody who hasn't developed a personality and therefore people who can attach to it.
Let's talk about a completely separate topic here. It's a fun one. Let's talk about streaming in the media. So when it comes to streaming, just in general, how do you think that streaming affects esports from a media perspective?
Things like Twitch are becoming kind of like the cable network of the young person right now. It's where you discover the top content or the top personalities. So how streaming affects esports, like one, it's where we recognize what the popular games are. You kind of go to the Twitch and you see what's up, and that's how PUBG gained popularity. They sort of like blasted all of their streamers at once to hit the front page. And now people are considering PUBG as an esport just because it's been on top of Twitch and people have watched it. In terms of players who retire can go on Twitch and stream. But it also helps develop players. So if we look at Overwatch League, a lot of its talent right now has been streamers going into the professional scene. And that's because if I'm really good at Overwatch, I'm going to keep playing it because I can stream and make money, and there's like a motivation for me to stick with Overwatch. But if there's no Twitch, like why do I keep playing Overwatch? And if I don't keep playing Overwatch to a competitive level and try to be publicly the best, do you get the same sort of talent pool for the Overwatch League? Like where are you pulling it from? How do you even know who to access? For Overwatch League, like some players were drafted because they were huge streamers.
Do you think that streaming is going to continue to be big, or do you think it'll stay pretty even as esports gets larger? Do you think the streaming community will become larger with more viewership from different areas?
I think it'll be huge. Streaming is so important for connecting with personalities. Streaming is important personally because anyone can get on Twitch. You yourself, forayed into esports a lot through that. I think additionally, it's how people consume video game content most. And I know this, I used to write just about video games in general and not esports. And the video game journalists themselves are losing power to Twitch streamers because if I want to know more about a game or figure out cool things about it, I can go on Twitch and just watch somebody for a half hour of my time. And it's the new cable network. Like it's what people do with their free time nowadays, where they place it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's move on to the social media aspect of journalism and producing. So what is Blitz's strategy when it comes to social media? You guys have a very public-facing channel where you release a lot of content. So could you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so social media, it's about getting shares. So it doesn't matter how many likes you get if you don't get retweeted because you're not putting your brand in anyone's face or reminding anybody about it. So everything you craft on social media should be with the goal to get someone else to retweet it. And that can be really difficult because, and anyone can feel this personally, like you could like 20 things, but you're probably gonna retweet one or fewer things in a day because you're really picky about what you present to your follower base. So everything you craft on social media, you not only have to think what your followers would like, but what your followers' are like. It's kind of like a double psychological, analysis here. So you have to make content that your followers are going to retweet to their fan bases. And that's why if you look at our channel, we have a lot of pictures, we have a lot of quotes. It's stuff that's easy for fans of esports, players of esports, and esports teams to want to retweet. It's great content for their personal brands, which makes it great content for your brand.
Do you feel like brands in the past, especially since in esports, since it's relatively new, have struggled with that sort of thing?
Yes, and I think the biggest mistake people have is assuming that they have brand power before they do. So if you're Rooster Teeth, you can post a picture of like you and your coworkers eating cake, and people will like it and retweet it because they like you. If you're like a new company, you can't just make memes and stuff out of yourself and your personality, and no one's going to share it. No one's going to find value in it. So one is like establish like a brand identity, and like if you're a person, it's it's not about you. It's about what you put out there and can it get shared. And I'll tell you, the LA Gladiators, their graphic designer right now, he got hired because he was creating content on Twitter. He was making up brand identities for teams that didn't exist, just making them himself, putting them on Twitter, because he knew that they would go viral. You know, people retweet it because they love Overwatch, and then that's how Gladiators eventually saw him, found him, and hired him, just through he made content that he knew would get retweeted, not liked, retweeted.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's transition to that for the students who are interested in journalism and articles and producing and all that sort of thing. What advice can you give to aspiring students who are interested in esports journalism?
My biggest advice always is do the job you want. Just start doing it. So if you want to be an esports writer or producer, start writing right now. I hope you are already. No one's going to hire you without a portfolio. I can't. I could love you to death, but if you don't show me you can create stuff and 5 other people did, I got to take my chances on them. So it doesn't matter if you don't publish it anywhere. You could have a WordPress blog post, or you just have them. You know, I get applications sometimes. I ask for samples, and people will say I don't have any. Well, make some. You know, you have a word processor. It's not crazy, but do the job that an esports reporter does. Wake up, look at the subreddit. Check out all the other news beats. What's the big story? How are you going to reach an audience today if you had to? What would you write? How would you title it? Make sure you're good at titles. You know, pick pictures for it. Show that you can format an article. If you want to be a producer, you don't have to film anything or edit it. Make scripts. One of my application pieces to Blitz was I imagined the interviews I would do, I imagined the quotes I would get, and then I just sort of arranged that with some assets in a Google Doc. It's sort of the script of a video, but I didn't have to edit anything or interview any players.
Right.
And then part 2 of that is going to be getting attention, and that can be hard. What I don't see people do a lot that they probably should is the main hub for all content is subreddits for these esports, so our Global Offensive, our League of Legends, our competitive Overwatch. And I wake up every morning and I look at the League of Legends subreddit. I look at all the subreddits, and that's where my content needs to end up. That's where all my competitors' content is going to end up. And you can post on it. You could post your own, as long as you know and respect the rules of the subreddit. You can post your own content there as a WordPress link or just a block of text. And if you can demonstrate, if you can write good stuff and get it to the front page, I'm going to see it. And if you do that twice, at least twice, I'm going to notice you and I'm going to look into you and I want to know if you work for anybody. Nobody does that.
So what about freelancing?
So freelancing is really important. Almost every esports outlet will take freelancers because they don't have a lot of money and it's cheaper to hire out content than hire a whole person.
Sure.
But just know you're never going to make a living off of it. That is only for getting your name out and getting some experience and getting some reputation with some local editors. And if you want to freelance, you have to stop caring so much about writing and start really caring about marketing and sales pitches. Because I get a lot of pitches that focus on this is what I find interesting, and nowhere in the process does community think it's interesting with the audience. So as a writer or a producer, you're a salesperson. Your content is your product, and your client is the audience, and they're going to pay with their time, that, and their attention. That is their currency here. So you need to convince me that my audience wants to read your content. So you need to ask yourself, is this something people talk about a lot and I'm rehashing it? Am I bringing anything new to this? Is it interesting? Would I click on this headline? What headline would I put on it? I see a lot of freelancer pitches that don't think about that stuff, and I just can't use their content. I don't need another pitch of should esport be considered a sport? Or should esports be in the Olympics? They're just they're hashed out, and honestly, you also have to think of why would someone listen to you on this? You as a person. If you just throw in your opinion into the box, not a lot of people will pick up on it. If you have a new angle, or you have somebody with professional experience speaking in the piece, then it's a little more interesting. So always think about every single pitch email that you send out absolutely has to tell them what it's about, what kind of headlines you would put on it, and why the audience will like it.
Thanks, Sharon, for taking the time to talk to us about the media.
It was great to be here.
That was Sharon Coone, the editor-in-chief at Blitz Esports, on esports media and how to be successful.